You just go on.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. How are you today? I'm Deborah McConkey, and I chair programming for HBSWA, as well as being on the board. And I'm thrilled today to welcome our speaker, Sherri Sklar, for the presentation today, The Rise of Fractional Executives. And for most of you probably know Sherri, she did programming when all of this HPSWA was launched nationally for quite a while. And she is also on the board. She'll tell you more about her background. One more thing before she starts, I just want to remind you of some upcoming things with the holidays. We typically, don't have events because you're busy enough from about mid-December on. However, we've still got plenty of things coming up. As you can see, the first week or so of December, we've got all kinds of things going on. We also have a launch of the AI Leadership in Action series, which I encourage you to attend because the first meeting will be getting input for what the needs are of our membership group. We've also got something on nonprofit board service on November 18th and a fabulous presentation by one of our own on November 19th for the diamond to understand diamonds and how jewelry is done. And it's a perfect launch off before the holidays. So encourage you to look at all of these. The things coming up, we've got more things on something on angel investing and organizing your severance and planning for that, as well as a healthcare startup showcase that's coming up December 10th. So we've got a ton of things going on, and of course our roundtables. So check your calendars and check your newsletters. Sherri, it's a pleasure to have you and can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Deborah. That's great intro. Really appreciate it. Well, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I'm going to first have to say something that I have a cat here that is kind of a loud cat sometimes. So if you hear a roar in the background, it's my cat. So I apologize in advance, but that's the best we can do here. Welcome, everybody. Being a fractional has been a part of my life for a while. When I started to think about it, I started to realize that I might be one of the OGs of this profession. It all started about 24 years ago when I became a mom, and I realized I needed a profession like this. So I can't wait to share with you a little bit about this. What we're going to do today, I'm going to give you almost like it's a primer on being a fractional executive. And so I've got a bunch of material to take you through. We're going to talk through, what is it? What's a fractional? And what's the difference between being a fractional versus being a full-time? And what's the difference between a fractional versus being a consultant or an advisor or an interim? We're talking through challenges and opportunities, and I've got a bunch of frameworks at the end that I think could be helpful to you if this is a profession that you want to pursue. So I'm very excited to jump into it, guys. With that, I'm going to jump right into the presentation. Should I share my screen, everybody? Okay, let's do that. All right. Hopefully you can see it. Welcome to Rise of the Fractional Executives. It is a very timely topic. We have so many people here today. It's like over, what did you say, Alexi? I think it was like 109 people signed up, maybe more that couldn't make it. It's one of the hottest topics around, and I'll share why. So who am I? Why am I talking to you about this topic? Many times I've been a fractional chief revenue officer, and it's been such a meaningful part of my career. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. But the other thing is, I have two different companies. I'm a managing partner of AI Venture Catalyst, we help build and acquire AI companies for B2B services companies. I'm also a CEO of Growth Terra, which is a B2B consultancy helping companies grow and scale their businesses. I've been an advisor many times in different companies, operating partner for Edison Partners, and go-to-market strategic advisor. I'm also on the board of HBS Women Alumni Association, and it's a wonderful organization. If you're not a member, I highly recommend joining. It's one of the best things that I ever did and helped me. It helped me as a fractional. I also wrote a chapter in a book about being a fractional chief revenue officer. And this is in the book Startup CXO by Matt Blumberg. So I think I know a little bit. I've got a lot of, scars and stripes and, all kinds of experiences that I can share. Most importantly, I've been a mom and I am a chief mom. And this is probably what's instigated the entire career going this way. And I'm an HBS grad, so I'm excited to be here with all of you. Um, well, as we mentioned, this is such a hot topic. And as so many people signed up, I got people like emailing me and texting me along the way. By the way, if you're not on mute, please be on mute so we can get through this. I'm going to have a bunch of material to get through, and then I'd love to take your questions, as many as possible at the end. But feel free to pop anything into the chat. But while I was preparing for today, I noticed I stumbled upon this woman, April Yucatel. She created a whole organization of fractional executives because she felt like the system was broken. She felt like a lot of people were working in corporate that were working in silos. But she's just saying the future is fractional, and in fact, the future is here. The executive labor market is being rewired. Boards and founders, they want senior leadership on tap, measurable outcomes without the full-time price tag, while seasoned leaders want more control over how, when, and where they deliver value. So this is why there's a huge surge. Let me share with you some of the numbers. There's a boom here. Did you know that there's over 142,000 people on LinkedIn identifying as fractional? 400% growth in LinkedIn postings mentioning fractional since 22. That's a 5,400% growth rate. It's huge. Why is this happening? It's mind-boggling that a lot of us are feeling the same way. But it's interesting to note and very exciting that 67% of startups are considering fractional executives. By the way, I'm a little frozen here. I don't know whether you guys can still see me. Are you able to see me? Deborah or Alexi?
Yes, we can
Good. I
see you.
just want to make sure because I'm looking at a little frozen. Okay. As long as you guys can hear me. 67% of startups are considering fractional executives. Right below that, you'll see that stat there I thought was interesting. 72% of CEOs plan to increase the use of fractional execs in the next 12 months. That's huge. That's a huge number. That has a lot of implications for us, which is why we're all here. We're very interested in that. 78% of fractional sales leaders are saying they're very optimistic about the future. 60% of the workforce will comprise of freelance contract work by 27. Why is this happening? This stat, the last one on the bottom right, is what most companies are saying they want this for, 40 to 70% cost savings by hiring seasoned executives on a fractional basis. Does this surprise us? I don't know. I'm not surprised. I keep, everyone I turn to, there's a lot of people doing this. So why are we seeing this demand surge? Well, did you know that there is a CFO shortage? There's actually 83% are reporting persistent finance and accounting talent shortages. This is leading to a huge search for fractional CFOs and fractional finance professionals. AI is a force multiplier. As you know, everybody here, we're all experiencing AI. You can do with one person what you used to have to do with a team of people. So this is causing companies to tap fractional to really take advantage of that. But some of these other things, of course, there's downward pressures on budget. You're hearing left and right, people are laying off thousands of people, these huge numbers that we're hearing in different companies. But I think one of the most important things that's happening is what happened to me in my life. We want to be able to make an impact. We want to be able to choose when and where we want to be able to deliver value. We want to be able to call our own shots, and really figure out like what really speaks to us in our career. Like, who are we? What are we trying to do in our lives? And I think a lot of us are thinking through that, and fractional might be the opportunity where you can own that. Some people feel that there's a glass ceiling fatigue. I mean, forever we keep seeing these statistics that women hold only 24% of C-suite positions. Is it ever going to change? But yet, fractional actually might be a pathway. And there's so many stories out there where women particularly are being hired on a fractional basis that leads to, long-term permanent positions. So this is why a lot of these forces are coming together. And in fact, here's an example of, with the shortage of finance professionals and CFOs, the most popular one is a CFO. Isn't that interesting? Actually, when I look at this, so it's marketing and finance at the top. I'm not even my chief revenue officer.
Sherry, it, I'm sorry, you're frozen, or maybe it's my screen. I don't know if everybody else's is. Okay, now you're back. You're back. Okay. You're just on mute. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I don't know. Yeah, I've noticed that there's a little freezing, so keep telling me if there's a problem. Okay,
Okay.
so what I was saying is, the most popular, finance, marketing. I don't even see my own there, chief revenue officer, but I know there's a ton of chief revenue officers out there who are on a fractional basis. So I thought that was very interesting. All right, so what are we saying here, guys, in terms of what is a fractional? Let's define it. Um, we're talking about, this surge of fractional work, experienced executives embedded part-time with one or more companies to deliver specific results on a retainer or fixed scope basis. So it's got those types of dimensions to it. It's part-time, it's on demand. You've got some kind of specialized expertise that you're known for. You're definitely senior. Okay, we're talking today only about senior executive people who are going after the fractional profession. And it's flexible and it's cost effective, and that's what's very attractive to a lot of companies. But we're not talking about temp staffing, and it's not classic advisory consulting. Fractional leaders own outcomes. So it's like we want you to stand up and deliver demand gen. We want you to deliver 5 million in pipeline in 90 days, or build a finance function to be audit ready in 2 quarters. There's specific outcomes that you would be going after. Sometimes it is they want to try out the function. They've never hired a person in that function before, like that's at the C level. They're at a point in the growth trajectory where they want to try somebody out for the first time and see what that's like. And it's almost like a try and buy. It's like, but for both parties, the company could be trying and buying you for two reasons. One is they really need a CFO or a CMO or whoever. And at the same time, they might be kind of looking you over for the permanent position. At the same time, also, you're kind of evaluating them. It's a wonderful opportunity to try and buy for both sides. So why are companies hiring fractionals? as we mentioned, cost effectiveness. We're seeing, they're trying to save 40 to 70% on cost, and they can. They can get somebody who's seasoned, 15, 20 years out, 30 years out, whatever, that at a fraction of the cost. Now, I'm going to caution about that whole comment in just a sec. I'm going to qualify what that means. It's not like you're cheapening yourself. You're not. We're going to get into that. But this is an opportunity for companies to save a lot of money and get a lot of talent and a lot of expertise to help them right when they need it. And it's a wonderful solution. You might have a ton of industry connections that would be very beneficial to the company. So that's a lot of times why companies hire fractionals. And they're looking for specialized expertise. You might be exactly the person that knows how to solve particular issues that they're going through. And again, the reduced risk of hiring. How expensive is it to hire the wrong person, as we know? So fractional gives both parties a chance to really try before you buy. Here's where I thought was interesting, as I mentioned, just because they're getting you at a fraction of the cost, that doesn't mean that you should feel like you are being diluted or that you are, cheapened in any way. It's quite the opposite. Again, this woman who I've come to admire as I started preparing this, she said, her name, April, you could tell, she said, this isn't about cost cutting through cheaper alternatives. Rather, it's about accessing expertise that would otherwise be locked behind corporate walls or priced out of reach. And she also goes on to say, you're getting a fraction of the time for a fraction of the price, but you're getting the whole person, their whole 20 to 30 years of experience, their network, their knowledge. So this is quite the opposite of diluting or cheapening you. It is just helping the company get you at a better price or for a certain amount of time. There's another person I stumbled upon. Let me see if I can get, let's see this. There we go. Tracy Sponenberg. I was reading up on some different fractionals. So she's a fractional chief people officer and HR consultant. And she said, that they need someone who's been there, done that, and can start solving problems on day one. That's why they're contracting with me, not for a fraction of my time, but the full force of over 30 years of experience applied exactly where they need it most. This is exactly why these models, fractional consulting project work, this is the future. So I thought I would share that. It's very important. I wanted you to take that away, that you are not cheapening yourself at all. You are definitely even more valued, and there's a premium for that. I have a poll I want to check with all of you, and I'm going to need Alexi to pull it up. Alexi, who is our Director of Operations here for HBS Women. Okay, here's the poll. I'm going to ask all of you to please join in. I want to see where all of you are. No, that's poll number 2. So let's go back to poll number 1. Coming up, guys. It's what best describes your current work situation? There you go. Okay, which best describes your current work situation? Are you full-time corporate? Are you between roles, job searching? Are you a consultant right now or freelancing? Or are you already working fractionally? Or are you semi-retired and you have some kind of portfolio career? Pick the one that best speaks to you. And let's see, Alexi, can we get in any kind of result? It's all over the place. So it looks like most people are in corporate, they're between roles, and they're consulting. There's a lot of, there's some portfolio stuff going on. Some have already started fractional. Okay, some are semi-retired. Good. All right. Now, that being said, it's kind of all over. Let's go to poll number 2. Alexi, if you could do us the honor. Okay, guys. So this poll is, if you could design your ideal work arrangement, what would it be? Would it be traditional full-time role with one company? Would it be fractional, working with 2 or 3 companies at a time, part-time? Would it be full-time with maximum flexibility, remote, hybrid? or fully independent consulting, or retired and not working? Which one is it for you? What's your most ideal work arrangement? Let's see what everybody says.
Still populating. Give it another second.
It's fine, thank you. Yeah, be interesting to see where everybody is. Ah, the ideal. Everybody's thinking the same thing here, pretty much. Almost here. Not, it's interesting. Look at that. Hardly anyone is saying traditional full-time role within one company. That is so interesting. Um, the ideal is to work in a fractional or work full-time, having the remote and hybrid capabilities. That also is very popular, and some independent consulting. Well, you're in the right place, guys. If you're trying to investigate what is fractional all about, you are in the right place. That was very interesting. So let's jump into what's the difference between fractional, consulting, advisor, and interim. Let me see here. My slides got to move. There we go. So if you're fractional, you're most definitely, you're an operator. Let me just say it that way. You're an operator. You are embedded with the team. You may or may not have an end date. Some do, some don't. Usually there is some kind of an end date. But sometimes it's that try and buy thing, and they may ask you to extend your contract. You might go in for 3 months, and then they're saying they want to renew and they want to keep going. It's not usually full time, although I've had several experiences where they ended up wanting me full time, and so it's interesting how that could lead that way. Do you represent the company? Yes, most definitely. You are an executive of that company, and you're leading some kind of a team. Whereas, consultant, no, you're not embedded at the team. Yes, you would have an end date. Um, and you can see, yeah, maybe you would be full-time with them. I don't know. You would definitely not be representing the company or leading any kind of a team. You're more like an advisor in that respect. Interim is yes, and sometimes usually, you would have some kind of an end date, but yes, you are considered an executive of that team. An advisor is no across the board. What's interesting though, as I mentioned, I've had several experiences where fractional led to an interim or full-time. So don't be surprised. Sometimes it's a great pathway to that if you're interested in that. Um, Here's another thing that I thought was very interesting. It's a whole spectrum, the relationship spectrum. Over on the right-hand side, fractional is the one that's most engaged as a partner. You're more like a partner. You consider yourself like a partnership relationship or arrangement. Um, you're solving a problem. You're creating outcomes. You're adding a ton of value. You're delivering value. You're being very proactive. You're interdependent with the team. Whereas on the way on the left side of the spectrum is freelancing and consultant. It's more considered like a vendor. So I think fractional is definitely more like the value add, and you're an operator. So I wanted to just clear that up, make that very um, um, distinct. So let's talk again. Now I'm going to ask you guys to take some time and put some stuff into the chat. I'll open up the chat. I actually can't. I'm gonna see it. What you guys are going to say. So for those of you that are already fractional, what do you like the most about being a fractional? And I'm going to try and can you guys see my screen when I'm looking at it? I don't know whether you can say, but whoever's, let's see, Deborah, maybe you can help me say what people are saying.
Sure.
What are
So
people's, is
could you
anyone,
repeat could you repeat your question again?
yeah, it's right there on the screen. What do you like about being a fractional? Anyone
Okay.
have any comments? Anyone that's doing fractional right now, what do you like? And if,
Um, I can comment. Sorry if my camera's not working. For me, I'm neurodivergent. I love being able to move through in and out different types of companies and experiences, and I don't get bored. So it's awesome for my brain.
Wonderful comment. Thank you. I don't know who it was, but thank you.
Zoe, it's Zoe. Hello.
Hey, Zoe. Great, great, great. And I'm seeing something here, Deborah.
Yes, there's one that says Sarah Kerwin, flexibility to do other things and find balance in my life.
That's another great comment.
Yeah.
I totally concur with that.
I'll just jump in and add, hi, this is Cassandra Dever. I'm also working fractionally or trying to. It's what I will say, it can be tricky about it is, finding the continuity and the continuous pipeline. But what I do like about it is it forces companies to really prioritize where they need you. So let's say you sign up for 10 or 15 hours a week. You don't have to sit through all the sort of wasteful meetings that don't make sense. They're really thoughtful about where they put you and where they want to put a senior leader in into key roles. So I like the efficiency, and by that you also get balance and flexibility back in your life because you're not working 80 hours a week, where a lot of that can be wasteful.
Wow, that's a great comment. I'm glad you said that. That's true. And you have to be careful. Companies are careful, and you need to be careful as a fractional where you spend your time, how you spend your time. And so that is a wonderful comment. So
And we have a couple more. One that's Anu says it's a path from full-time to not being full-time to create my portfolio past my current role. And then Judy mentioned I was a fractional in the late 90s, CMO, CRO. I chose those companies in the same overall category, but they weren't competitive with one another. And it was a truly symbiotic experience, and lessons learned with one benefited the other. And there's one other comment that was about the concern, and that is that strategic is long-term, not short-term. Sustainability is long-term, and fractional seems to be hit and miss without long-term accountability. It's too easy to love them and leave them without accountability, especially as a CEO versus operational roles. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, Sherri.
Yeah,
That was from Karen.
interesting. There is that that's part of the nature of being a fractional as well. Yes, you are part of that organization. It's an excellent point. And then, but I would not, I'm not quite sure whether you were saying that you don't have accountability. You do have accountability for the time that you were there. You are the executive in charge for that particular point. So I do feel like, you own it just like any executive. And we're going to talk about, the difference between full-time versus fractional. But, you do point out the right point that, yeah, I mean, you could be very interim. You could be just a short period of time there. And so what can you do with that? You do the best that you can. You give most of your value at that point in time, and you own it. Let me put a couple of my own in there. I put in these things. I love the flexibility. It was the most important thing to me when I became a mom, for instance. I needed flexibility. I could not see myself going back working at in a corporate situation. I loved the idea that I could own my own schedule. I could call my own shots. And better control over what I could get paid. And just felt good about being in control of my own destiny. And I also thought it was really exciting. This opened up new doors for me. I could help a broader audience. And I started to find my voice a little bit more in terms of, the kind of thought leadership that I wanted to provide to the world. Okay, so let me take us to the next question, which is challenges. All right. Any of you guys have any experiences with being a fractional? Put in the chat any challenges that you may have, because we're gonna, and if there's not enough of you in there in the audience, it's fine. Deborah, we can move forward because I've got a bunch to talk through.
Sure. No, we actually have a couple already. One is, how do you create boundaries when you keep ending up working more than intended?
Yeah, that's a great one. All right. Next one. We'll put them down.
And okay, and the other is getting a continued business pipeline,
Ah,
so
good.
new
The two
business.
brownies.
Well,
Okay.
sure, because if you're working, you're not doing business development. And then, is there tension between fractional executives and traditional executives at the same
Oh,
company?
that's a good one too. All right. I love these things that you guys put into the chat. I'm going to add my own and then I'm going to answer them all. We're going to get into them. Um, so I also want to add to this. So expectations, okay? It's important to set expectations with when you're a fractional about what you can do, what you can't do. You have limited amount of time. And that's where this question that someone put in about boundaries comes in. You've got to set the expectations. You got to be very, very strong about that, which enables you to control the boundaries. And I've run into that many, many times. We have multiple companies that you're dealing with at once. How do you handle all of that? And especially if somebody goes over and they want more and they keep wanting more and more of your time. I have some solutions to that. We're going to talk through some frameworks in a little bit. The other thing is trust. That gets to the point about um, you know, is there tension between the fractional versus other executives? Also, it gets into other situations that you get into. You may be taking over a team. Again, remember, you're an operator. You're taking over a team and the team doesn't trust you. They don't trust you. They know you're here for a short period of time. How are you going to, how are you going to get their trust? When they know that, you're not really going to be here for the long term, so then maybe you don't count. So there's that kind of situation that you can experience. And we're going to again talk through some of this stuff. Non-specific goals. You'll run into a lot of problems if you're not very specific about the goals you're going after. What does success look like? What are we going after here? What are the outcomes? We're being very outcome oriented. Communications gap is another challenge I've run into. Again, you're not part of the original team. Again, getting to the point that somebody said about fractional versus existing team. So you don't know everybody. You don't know their, momentum that they brought or the kind of culture that they have or the kind of friendships that they have between the two, all of them. You may be on the executive team, but you're the new kid on the block. So, how do you actually develop communication so that you are part of the team? Communication about the meaning of being a fractional. What does it mean, to be a leader when you're only there 1 or 2 days a week? How do you lead? How do you set people up for success so that, when you're not there, how does that work? Um, and and again, that whole concept of, they think you're only here for a short period of time. So maybe maybe you don't really matter. Maybe they should skip over you and just go straight to the CEO. I've had all kinds of scenarios. I've had people try to even steal my job who used to work for me. It was very interesting, the dynamics that you get into. So you have to develop a tough outer skin on some of this stuff. Um, Getting opportunities consistently. That's another comment, Deborah, that somebody had just raised. That is one of the biggest issues that a lot of people are concerned about when you're a fractional. How do you get all the opportunities? How do you keep it going so that you're not just, feast or famine? And then the other thing I noticed is how do you educate your value? And that's not just it's not just that you're a fractional. Well, as we were saying before, a fractional, it's really that you're there to solve a problem and you're a problem solver. You're an expert in something. So, don't put out the message to the world that, I'm just a fractional. That's not why you're there to solve a problem. The company is stalling in terms of growth, and we need to find a new way to actually grow the company. And I'm here to actually help put the plans in place so that we can do that, something like that. So we'll get into a lot of this as we talk through the role. Okay, well, let's just talk about it. Like, what's the difference between full-time and fractional? That's something to really talk through. So many of you in the audience, you might be full-time right now, and you're thinking, I want to be a fractional, or you're in transition, you're thinking, I want to be a fractional. What's the difference? What it's like? So I'm going to go through that, and then we're going to talk through some frameworks that I think you're going to love. Let me see if we can move this. So first of all, fractional is not full-time light. It's different. What I mean by that is it is its own special profession. You have to be prepared in a way. You can't just transfer what you knew as being a full-time and then execute as a fractional. You have to have systems and you have to have things that you deliberately set up ahead of time for success. So let me take you through some of the things that I think these are critical success factors. The setup is everything. You need to have the conversation with everybody involved, particularly the CEO or whoever it is that's hired you. And you need to say, this is what you can expect from me. This is what we can expect from this time together. This is the boundaries that I'll be here 1 or 2 days a week. During the time that I'm off, this is how things should be handled. I can do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to be doing X, A, B, and C. So be very clear about setting boundaries about what they can and cannot expect from you and what they can and cannot expect in terms of your time there. So many times I've been hired because they need somebody to help, jumpstart their growth, and they're trying to figure out how to get more sales and how to increase. And it's almost like you come in and they feel like, oh, phew, she's going to save us. They think that, you're going to come in and, they pick a number out of thin air and they want you to go get that number and you're going to go get it for them and they can just relax and they don't have to do anything. That's not how it works. And especially chief revenue officers, anyone in the audience that have been in this role, that is a common experience. They expect you to kind of fix it. That's not going to happen. Everybody knows change takes time. And if you're any kind of change management expert, it takes, at least 12 to 18 months for real transformational change to take place. Does that mean that you can't have a huge impact? No. In fact, I highly recommend that you go and get early wins, or get early wins. So you can make a difference. Many times I make it a point to make a difference, even in the first week. Sometimes I've had situations where I come in, I actually closed a deal within the first week of my being in a position of fractional CRO. I closed a deal because the CEO was having an argument with this client and it was practically threatening the whole deal to blow up. And I happened to just jump in at that point. So I pushed the CEO aside. I said, let me handle this, negotiated the deal, and we closed the deal. And I was brand new, only 1 week. Well, that was an early win. Things like that are essential for your credibility, as well as, it's unfair, but when you're hired as a fractional, time is compressed. They expect big results in short periods of time, and it's hard. But again, setting it up is everything, and that's why, you set the expectations up front. You're going to be okay with that. You're going to be more than okay. It's also very important to decide where to focus. I recommend that you do a diagnostic. You do some kind of an assessment when you get there. What's working, what's not working, and then help everybody figure out what's the right thing that should get fixed first. Pressure test the CEO and the team. Great opportunity to see who you're working with. You won't know it until you start working with them. And then build relationships early with the C-suite, your team, and even the private equity and VCs that might be funding you. I feel it's important that you have these things all prepared in your mind, to have a mindset that you're there to solve a problem. You're not just a fractional. And prepare and practice and rehearse, just like in a musical performance. You need to be jumping in, and you need to shine, and you need to show your expertise. I also recommend that you deliberately orchestrate your win. You need to have playbooks. I'm giving you a couple of tips here. Not only in your proposal when you set up your whole engagement, and you lay all these things out in writing, but when you get there, have something like a one pager or, some kind of an engagement charter that says, what does success look like when we're working together? Let's get clear on what the context is. Every company is going to be different. So make sure you understand, all the cultural things, the meeting cadences, all the different things about the company that you should know. What are we delivering? What are the dependencies? Who's doing what? What are the deadlines or the timelines? And sign it. Communication is so key as a fractional. I also recommend pro tip number 2, communication, rhythmic cadences. Always have some kind of an agreement with your CEO, whoever has hired you. Have a Monday alignment meeting, or it could be a Friday, but Monday was always my thing with my CEOs. For sales and growth, I always did like the forecast on Friday, had all the information, all the metrics that I needed available so that I could have my meeting on Mondays with the CEO. You could have weekly win, risk, and learn sessions, or even put it in an email. Here's what we're winning. Here's where I see the risks. Here's what we're learning. And then on a monthly basis, strategy resets. Develop your playbook, identify the problems, as we said, prioritize with the CEO, get the rest of the team on board, put resources in place, get early wins, as I mentioned, strategic transformation set up for the long term, implement it, rinse and repeat. So with some of these tools, I'm going to give you a couple of frameworks, a couple more slides here to go. This is what I call an operating system for yourself as a fractional. You're going to need these 5 pillars. Time architecture, meaning block out certain dedicated hours and days per client. This is how you can create boundaries. Protect non-client time for strategic thinking. Make sure you give yourself some buffers. A communication cadence, as we just talked about, weekly touch points, async updates as well. Portable frameworks. Before you start as a fractional, get some frameworks in place. Have some templates that you can use, create a playbook that you can use. I'm using things that I'm using across multiple companies, 20 different times. It's really going to make life a whole lot easier for yourself. And then what I call radical organization, separate systems for different clients, everything documented. And finally, for boundaries, clear scope, be very crisp about your scope, clear deliverables, clear off hours. The fractional success requires saying that's outside our scope, but you can always make room for additional things that you want to add back in. So it's important to have the communication is what I'm saying. And then finally, this question about how do you actually expand and get continuous opportunities. I created this wheel. It's a fractional flywheel. And this is a theme that I have worked on for years and years. Many times I find that some of us, we get kind of pigeonholed into one dimension in our life, and all we interact with is just our work people that we've worked with in our jobs. But if you think about it, think about expanding exponentially in 10,000 directions at once. This is how you get people to work with you. Develop your personal brand. Networking is critical. Most of my opportunities came from referrals. Almost all of them came from referrals. People, and you ask for referrals because you have trust with certain people, and people say, wow, I definitely I will help you. I want to introduce you to this CEO. Like that happened. We created, my business partner Janine and I created a show called the CEO Morning Jolt. It was kind of like the precursor to a podcast. And we had sponsors. And one of the sponsors was a law firm. And the attorney said, I'm on the board of this company. I'd like you to meet this CEO. They're having trouble with their growth. I need you, help them. That's how, that's how the referral thing works. So do events, do roundtables, do podcasts, post a lot, let people know who you are, how you think. It's a way of building trust. Most of the fractional executives I know are getting like almost like 67% of their leads are coming from people that have seen them on LinkedIn somehow. So don't be afraid to go around this circle. Everybody, you can get a copy of these slides. I really highly recommend that you create multifaceted ways to interact with people and see them and have them see you. On the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you never know where your next lead is going to come from. It could, by the way, HBS Women is fantastic because we're always looking to help one another. It's a very friendly organization to help one another. But think of your other alumni groups, think of networking groups, your professors, past colleagues, past customers, past bosses. You can call them up and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you know anybody that has this kind of a need? Um, you can talk to family and friends. You could do sporting events, music and theater events. I can't tell you enough how many times we have gone, to different events with different people and it created new contacts. So I leave this with you because I think it's really the essence of creating continuous pipeline. And that's it, my friends. I have some resources for you. There's a whole bunch of communities, there's learning, there's marketplaces, fractional brands. There's some great posts. So take a look at these, and that's it. See if I can get there.
Sherri, thank you so much. We have time for a few questions. I have one myself. When you mentioned one of the slides about come with your resources, do you typically end up saying you need people to do certain functions, or maybe you'll do them behind the scenes where you'll bring in specialized people to take care of certain tasks? Or when it comes to things like systems, not every company even has a fabulous CRM system or whatever kinds of tools you might use in your position, or other functions as well. What do you typically do then?
That's a great question. I think, you should have your own go-to resources that that you can rely on that could help you. Many times I was brought in like go-to-market strategic advisor for a company where I knew that the company needed to be rebranded. There was just no other way around it. I brought in some of my favorite people that I know that I knew could do a bang-up job. I also knew that they also needed help selling value. And so even though I do it myself, it's interesting. In that case, I was brought in, I'm working very closely with the CEO of the company. And even though I know all about how to sell value, I did not put myself in as the resource to run certain workshops or whatever. I brought in somebody on the outside because I'm working as an operator there. So I brought somebody from the outside that I know is awesome at helping organizations sell value. So you have your go-to resources. And the other thing that I meant by bringing your resources is, and really scour and understand who's there in your new organization that you're a part of. There's a lot of, gather the resources that you need there. And yes, if your CRM is broken, you're going to need some help there, and you're going to have to, as you would as an operator, go out and do an analysis in the market and figure out what's the best CRMs. You're going to have to put in systems, processes, people, just like a regular operator of a full-time job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you had also mentioned these slides will be available, or can you put back up the resource slide?
Slides are going to be available. I'll, make
Okay.
sure that you guys, that HBS Women will make it available to all of you. And oh, and I have this, not only do I have this slide, I also created a one pager that I'll send to HBS Women for Alexi to send out to everybody. And it's fractional executive placement firms. I
Oh,
written by, I actually did some analysis on for fractional CEO, CFO, COO, CRO, CTO, CPO, CMO, multi-role. So there are some places that you can go. In fact, I wonder if I could share with you. There's something else I found when I was doing, I wonder if I can find it. You can see my screen, guys. Yeah, look at this. I found this site. I put this into the guy and the resources. This is incredible. There's this site called Ignite Bright, Where to Find Fractional Jobs, Complete Guide for Executive Opportunities. So I have that in the resources.
fabulous. Thank you. There's also a question here from Lindsay Rosenblum. What's your perspective on compensation expectations in this concept? Because, you mentioned it's savings for a company. It doesn't mean that you're cheap. Is it closer to what you would charge on a consulting basis, or do you take a salary, what you would expect for a salary, and then just prorate that?
Yeah, excellent question, Lindsay. I knew the compensation question would come up. It's a very important discussion. No, you do not cheapen yourself one bit. In fact, what I usually recommend and what a lot of other fractionals that I've talked to have done is you take what you would have made on a full-time basis and divide it up into what the 2080 hours per year, figure out what your hourly rate is, and determine. I would not charge on an hourly basis. Maybe you have a daily rate or you can have weekly or monthly rates, but you always add the premium. It's always like 1.3 to 1.5x because you have to take care of a lot of other things in addition to working. You've got your own benefits that you've got to take care of. There's your own expenses in being able to be a fractional. So you have every right to add a 1.3x factor, yes, into the hourly rate, yes.
Sherri, it's Judy Cousin. What an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. And I had two questions for you. One is related to compensation. Do you see it widely varying the premium opportunity by C-suite function? And the second was, do we need to consider purchasing any individual liability policies to allow for this? Thank you.
Excellent questions. So yes, I do think compensation does vary by function, just like it would as a full-time. So check out your benchmarks for compensation. Thank you. Check out your benchmarks for compensation across for your particular functional area. So I would imagine that CFOs get paid different than CMOs, they get paid different than COOs, CROs. Just check out your function. And then yes, the answer is yes, you need liability insurance. You definitely do. It's just like I guess a consultant would. So I would highly recommend you go check into some kind of liability insurance. Good question.
Great. Someone else also asked a question about equity.
I just saw that.
Especially for smaller companies and startups, do you ever structure that or recommend that be part of compensation?
Yes, I think if you're open to it, why not? It's a part of your comp. Why not? Again, just make sure. I think you should do your homework before you do any negotiation. Make sure you understand what other executives are getting on a full-time basis for your function. We're talking senior executives. What are they getting? You should be, open to that, and you can negotiate at that level. So I think equity is a great opportunity for those of you that want it, and that in some respects, it could be a really great thing.
Great. And someone else also asked, do you typically set up, say, on a number of hours, or do you set or
মানে সেখানে আমি
specific
এভাবে ভাবতে
days?
পারবো। কারণ আমি মাঝে, মাঝে ভাবি যে এই যে আপা, আম্মা
Sorry, somebody needs to mute. What was the question, Deborah, please?
Whether or not you find it easier or better to offer up your contract on specific number of hours a week or a month, or do you set days like, you know, Mondays and Fridays? So that's it.
Yes. You talk to your sponsor, whoever it is, like your CEO, and you definitely say, okay, they'll say something, I need you 2 or 3 days a week. And you definitely would set it up. I think, the way I would like to do this, because you might have several companies that you're working with at once. So you might tell the CEO of one company, I'll be available primarily Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays for you guys. I got to do, Wednesdays and Thursdays for somebody else. That being said, life is never like cookie cutter. A lot of
Right.
times things come up at the last minute. And sometimes what I've found is it's sometimes best to just say it's going to be 2 or 3 days a week or 2 days a week. You be very crisp about it. And you manage your time. You watch the amount of time that you're spending and you just make yourself available and flexible to be able to, because I found that to be very helpful to most companies. It also kind of makes it seem like you're there a little bit more than the time that you are there.
Okay, great. And one thing that didn't come up in your position as CRO what about things like commissions on sales incorporated into it?
Oh yeah, I'm all for that. I am not a shy girl for commission. I love commission, commission. I own it. Like I know I'm going to get great results, so I don't mind getting commission. I want it. So yes, if you're in that position too, I highly recommend it. It can be very lucrative for yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Anything else coming in? Let's see.
Is there the curiosity, speaking with recruiters, what's the best terminology? Fractional, for part-time, interim?
I think fractional is a very accepted term now. So I think you should go for fractional. Everybody understands it now. It's pretty well known. I would do that. Yep.
Great. Well, I think that's it for the questions. Sherri, this was
Yeah, worked out.
fabulous. Everybody is thanking you and saying
Oh,
it's a terrific session. And lots of
glad.
kudos to you. So this
Oh
was
my goodness.
just so full of practical applications and giving many people here, as you saw from the polls, that are either in it or want to be in it. So you've given a lot of great feedback.
Oh my gosh, thank you, everybody. Well, listen, I want to open, if anyone needs to talk about it further, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to speak with you. And I'm delighted that we're here. It's such a great topic for so many of us. So welcome glad to see you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Sherri.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Take care. Thanks. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Knock 'em dead.